Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse from Astrology, and in this recording I'm going to be talking about the astrology of the terrible fire at Notre Dame that happened on the 15th of April 2019. This is an audio version of the article that is on my website. So if you would prefer to read, or if you just would like to have a written reference, a written transcript of this recording, then you can hop on over to my website. There are also images there of the charts that I'm going to be talking about, the event chart. So it's all there. I will put the link below. So then, these are strange times, these are difficult times. One of the things I have most often said is that the universe is in constant communication with us. Everything that occurs in waking life can be interpreted as if it were a dream. When it comes to astrology, some people rail against it and they say the planets can't exert any influence over us. And they are right. It's not that the planets cause what happens. Rather, it's that the planets are a poetic language describing an ongoing story of our experience here on planet Earth. We have free will as to how we live the details of this great and cosmic story, but the archetypal structure of that story is what is set in stone. And so I see my role as an astrologer is to translate the messages of the stars. In my own astrology chart, I have a very full 9th house, a house traditionally connected to Jupiter and Sagittarius. The 9th house rules universities, philosophy and religion. It's the house of symbolic language. So symbolic language is the language of astrology, the language of fairy tales, the language of tarot. Many years ago, an old astrologer said to me that the 9th house is the house of God. And yesterday, the house of God burned. All week, I have been hearing the crows on my street, shouting, cawing, screaming, flapping their wings. I have noticed over the years that when the birds are restless, something is coming. Yesterday morning, I realised that my pentagram had fallen off my necklace, and I've worn this necklace for around 30 years. I had a conversation on Facebook about these ominous feelings that these occurrences were giving me. And we ended up in a big discussion about the Twin Towers, the coming of inevitable change, and how if things don't change naturally, then the situation is going to be forced. As I said above, there is an overarching structure that we are working within. We can choose to fight against it, or we can choose to go with it. Naturally, the more we fight, the greater the difficulties we encounter because we're trying to move in the wrong direction. All of us as astrologers have been closely watching the skies, as right now we have this big, powerful lineup of Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node. Saturn rules authority, the system, conservation, tradition, buildings. Pluto rules death, change, force, endings, toxicity, rubbish, sex, power, crime. Pluto is also our shadow. The South Node rules old karma. This is all happening in the sign of Capricorn, a sign ruled by Saturn and symbolic of the establishment. So from this then, we have been talking about how the establishment needs to change. The system is toxic. Old paradigms no longer work. The South Node in Capricorn and the North Node in Cancer suggests a move away from patriarchy, Capricorn, towards matriarchy, Cancer. We must release old attitudes to make for a more caring society. Cancer rules the family. But the powers that be, the governments, those with the greatest wealth, ruled by Pluto, are holding on. and they're not letting go of the power that they have. And now the signs are that we must change. We can't hold back evolution, and you definitely can't hold back Pluto. Pluto's nature is to keep applying pressure until you relent and let go. The harder we resist, the harder Pluto will push back, and Pluto will win. Along with this powerful lineup of Pluto, Saturn and the South Node this year, we also have Jupiter squaring Neptune. Now both these planets are connected to spirituality. Jupiter is about faith, but the beliefs we hold via Jupiter are more from a book, a man-made system of spiritual law. And when I say man, I do mean male in this instance. Neptune, however, rules that direct connection to God, where you need no intercessory. Neptune is the feeling in your soul that you're connected to something greater than yourself. In my post that I wrote about this Jupiter square to Neptune, I wrote this on Patreon back in December last year, I said we have great waves washing through us, waves of compassion, waves of loss. Are we finding faith or are we losing it? There's great hope and the potential too for great despair. As I said above, what happens in life can be interpreted as a dream, and there are many layers of interpretation. One interpretation I see is that the church is a symbol for faith. Even if it's not your faith, it's not any one faith, just the concept of faith. And we've lost faith in the old system. Certainly it seems many people in France feel the same, because they've got the powerful yellow jacket movement going on at the moment. France has been fighting itself for a long time, and now its heart has given out. I noted that there were people singing hymns as they watched the fires burning. Sometimes it's only through great loss that we are united. Neptune rules the invisible thread that binds us all. The church itself is considered female, Our Lady of France. France has pledged to restore her. Symbolically, we are being told that we need to find our faith again, not in the old system or in any one religion, but faith in each other, faith in the Mother, and maybe we could say faith in Mother Earth. The moment that captivated the world was when the tower on top of the Notre Dame fell. Millions of people were watching and felt something in their hearts, a feeling, a knowing. The tower falling is a sign. In the tarot, the tower is what happens when things must change. It often comes when we've been stuck for a long time. If you think about the natural order of the major arcana in the tarot, the card that comes before the tower is the devil. The devil is the shadow. The devil is horror, hell, the underworld, feeling stuck, trapped, materialism. In the Golden Dawn system of correspondences between tarot and astrology, the devil card is actually related to the sign Capricorn. Capricorn, where Saturn and Pluto and the South Node are currently gathered. So then, following the imagery of the story of the tarot, the tower, the following card to the devil, is how we break out of hell. How we break out of hell. The tower is the first light after the dark. The tarot card, the traditional tarot card of the tower, shows a lightning bolt in the middle of the night. My French friend told me that the tower that was above Notre Dame was called La Flèche, apologise for the probable mispronunciation. I don't speak any French, but it means the arrow. In some tarot decks, the single arrow is used to depict either the Ace of Wands or the Ace of Swords. Both are cards of clarity and beginnings. And the symbol of a Sagittarius is a centaur shooting an arrow. Sagittarius is a visionary, the prophet, the seer. It aims its arrow into the heart of the scorpion, the poison within, the heart of truth. It's through destruction that we see the truth. And there will be light. Eventually, we will evolve. Eventually. Just as Notre Dame will be rebuilt, so will we. But whilst I prefer to read the positives, I feel it would be remiss to leave out some of the negative. The message is clear that what has stood for hundreds of years can be razed to the ground. Notre Dame was going through renovation work, but if we think of this in symbolic terms, you cannot renovate something that is fundamentally flawed at its foundation. The Catholic Church itself is burning from the inside with abuse. The foundations of our society are falling apart. The planet herself is gasping for breath under layers of our plastic debris. We cannot keep trying to prop up something which isn't working. And we feel it. We feel it in our bones. We've lost faith, and if we don't change, something will change it for us. So I'm going to turn now to talk about the event chart of the fire that occurred at Notre Dame. Before I say anything about the chart itself, I want to reiterate that talking about all of this symbolism and the astrology and the meaning of the chart in no way is meant to detract from, firstly, the terrible sadness that I feel personally about the loss of this incredibly beautiful building and all of the historical significance. Nor do I want to detract from the significance that it has and had for millions of people who see it as a place of worship and sanctity. My thoughts are also with the firefighter who was very badly injured whilst battling this fire. Back at the end of March, I posted my update, my forecast for April on my website, and I talked about the station retrograde of Pluto, which is due to happen on the 24th. But Pluto is pretty much stationary right now. And the Sabian symbol for Pluto's station is a woman entering a convent. In my post, I linked the symbolism of this Sabian symbol to the idea of cleansing, the eradication of toxic materialism. I also commented that it could also be connected to the ill treatment of women, and also it could be linked to the Catholic Church and the various abuse scandals. Now, in that fire event chart, this karmic collection of Pluto, stationing Pluto on this convent degree with Saturn and the South Node, they are all sitting in the 4th house of this chart. This is the part of the chart that talks of home and country. So karma, remember Saturn too is also called the Lord of Karma. Karma is striking at the heart of the country. The sign Libra is rising in this chart on the ascendant. Now Libra carries the scales of justice and it speaks of balance and truth. Libra is ruled by Venus, the goddess, our lady. Venus is in Pisces, the sign connected to spirituality. And out of interest, Venus is only 2 minutes away from the next degree along. And the Sabian symbol for that degree is a religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influences of perverted practices and materialized ideals. Venus is conjunct Black Moon Lilith. Lilith, who calls out unfair practices. Lilith is the one that says no. In mythology, she was the first wife of Adam, who left the Garden of Eden because Adam wouldn't treat her fairly. And from there, Lilith was demonized throughout history. Lilith conjunct Venus then talks of the demonization and unfair treatment of women. Venus creates a square with Jupiter, the ruler of the church. Jupiter sits opposite asteroid Nemesis, a Greek goddess who enacts retribution for hubris, in other words, arrogance before the gods. Asteroid Paris sits directly conjunct the ascendant of this chart. The ascendant of the chart is on the Sabian symbol in a collection of perfect specimens of many biological forms. A butterfly displays the beauty of its wings, its body impaled by a fine dart. The butterfly is a symbol for change and evolution, but here in this Sabian symbol, its flight has been arrested by the dart. The symbol then is talking of arresting progress, not allowing change to happen. The desire to preserve at any cost, including the butterfly's life. Asteroid Paris opposes Chiron, the wounded healer on the descendant. Something is broken in Paris. Something is sick in Paris. The aspect indicates pain, the flushing out of an old and festering wound. Chiron is conjunct asteroid Vesta, the priestess, the keeper of the flame. She is also an asteroid of devotion. Chiron and Vesta are both in the fire sign of Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars, the ruler of fire, inflammation and anger, is in the 9th house. Remember what I said earlier, the house of God. Perhaps this is a reference to the fury that's been this long-running saga in France with all of the protests. The fury has become the fire. Mars is in the sign of Gemini, the twins, and Notre Dame has 2 towers. Thankfully, these weren't destroyed in the fire. Of course, in the Western psyche, the concept of the twin towers brings up very vivid memories. The falling of the towers in America was the herald of the war with Iraq, the rise of terrorism. And yes, without wanting to get into fear-mongering, there are suggestions that war could erupt again if we don't address our problems. Remember, we do have a choice in how to play out these stories. Asteroid Lachesis, one of the fates and the measurer of the thread of life, is conjunct Mars. Mars is on the more optimistic Sabian symbol. Newly opened lands offer the pioneer new opportunities for experience. We have a chance to fight for a different philosophy, to open a discussion, Gemini, to assert ourselves to be heard. Mars is also conjunct asteroid Panacea, meaning heal all. The potential for healing all is there. The Sun is conjunct asteroid Babel, as in the Tower of Babel. In the Bible, humankind tried to build a tower to God, but God wasn't very impressed with this, and so he stopped them by creating all different languages so the humans could no longer understand one another. The themes of this story have been challenged over the years, but on the face of it, asteroid Babel talks about punishment once again for hubris. Remember, there's asteroid Nemesis, also opposite Jupiter. So we've got 2 themes here talking about humans trying to be like gods. We need to be able to understand one another. We need to listen to one another, even if we speak different languages. The Sun is also conjunct Uranus, ruler of rebellion, shock, things that happen suddenly. Asteroid nostalgia is conjunct Uranus, a sudden awakening of nostalgia. So many people are talking about their memories of visiting this beautiful building. The moon is in the 12th house, a house also associated with spiritual places, as well as the collective unconscious. Strangely, the moon is on the same degree as Victor Hugo's natal Saturn. Remember, Saturn is Lord of Karma. Victor Hugo was the author of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Victor's natal moon is conjunct Jupiter in this chart, the ruler of the house of God traditionally. The midheaven of the chart is in the sign of Cancer and the sign of the North Node, the point showing us our way forward as far as our karmic evolution is concerned. The Sabian symbol of the midheaven is on a ship, the sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. We are in this process of changing, moving from the old order, from the old standards that we've set ourselves, towards a new standard. When the tower falls, we must sit up and pay attention. The ominous feeling that many of us experienced when watching the flames consume this beautiful building is a stark wake-up call, and that's Uranus. France has pledged to rebuild Our Lady, and that too is what we need to do. We must reinstate the divine feminine. We must move towards a more caring and kinder society. We must learn to listen to one another despite our different languages. The old system will be erased, and we must step up and take an active part in that evolution. What is happening now is crucial to what will be happening in January 2020, when a mass of planets align in the sign Capricorn. We can't afford to lose faith in the world, in the planet, in each other, or in ourselves. We can and must arise from the ashes. This concludes my reading for The Burning of Notre Dame. I hope you found it helpful, and I wish you many blessings on your path.